All right, with 47 million Americans traveling for Thanksgiving this weekend, the FBI and Homeland Security today releasing a bulletin to 18,000 members of law enforcement warning of copycat attacks following the deadly terror strikes in Paris. So what are we doing right now to control who is in our country right now? Consider a few facts. 20 million people come into this country every year under the visa waiver program. They travel into the United States with very little vetting and very little restrictions. Meanwhile, intel reports indicate there are 4,000 people in Europe right now with European passports that have ties to radical Islam. And the Paris attackers, they held European passports. So why are these Europeans able to travel here so freely? In addition, and perhaps even more alarming, there are more than 1,000 investigations in America right now into people tied to ISIS. The author of that new report that talks about the homeland threat, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, a counterterrorism instructor for the FBI and U.S. Special Forces, and he joins me now. Dr. Gorka, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back.
So perhaps the most alarming thing in your study is this conclusion that ISIS, and I quote, ISIS has the necessary supporters in place and the financial means to carry out an attack here in America. What evidence do you have, Dr. Gorka, that's compelling you to say that?
Well, we've collected all the unclassified open source information over the last 20 months in America related to the interdiction of ISIS suspects. And the facts just speak for themselves. In that period, we have had 82 people arrested or killed on U.S. soil involved in ISIS plots. Of those people, 50% wanted to go and fight jihad in the Middle East, in Iraq or Syria. But the really scary news is that 30% of those people we intercepted as ISIS supporters, ISIS recruits, had no intention of leaving America and fighting jihad in the Middle East. They had decided the best way to serve the new caliph, the best way to serve ISIS, is to kill Americans on U.S. soil. Those are just the facts of the matter.
So, Dr. Gorka, we heard earlier from the president today who said there is no credible threat and there's no reason for people to change their behavior and no reason really for people to be that worried. But nonetheless, when you speak, I get a little worried.
Well, the president clearly isn't listening to his own director of the Federal Bureau of Investigations. Director Comey has testified in open session on the Hill that we have ISIS, not Al-Qaeda, ISIS investigations ongoing in every single state of the union, Trish. That includes Alaska and Hawaii, incredibly. Thanks to Judicial Watch, to them FOIAing a document recently, we now know from a state law enforcement agency that was writing to the feds that there are more than 900 ongoing investigations. So either the president isn't listening to his own director of the FBI, or he's spinning a yarn just to support his continued assessment that ISIS are the JV team.
Well, let's talk about that, the JV team aspect of all this. I mean, we saw a pretty sophisticated attack unfold there in Europe. When you look at who our government is gathering intelligence on, when you look at who's communicating right now on social media, are these people sophisticated? Are they capable of doing something like we saw in Paris?
Absolutely. If there's any JV team today, it is Al-Qaeda. It is not ISIS. On all open source metrics, ISIS is much more dangerous than Al-Qaeda. Number one, they have thousands, tens of thousands of members, up to 65,000 members in ISIS right now. They have more money than Al-Qaeda ever dreamt of. They are making, according to the Financial Times, $500 million a year. That is between $2 and $4 million a day. With that, you can fund all kinds of attacks. So they are definitely a real threat to America right now.
Look, we were just talking about that with Ambassador Woolsey, who was making the point that there we are trying to strike at their oil trucks, but we have to warn them when we're going to do it because, you know, gosh darn forbid we actually get one of the drivers of the ISIS oil trucks in the process. Are we not approaching this the way, Dr. Gorka, we should be, understanding that this really is an enemy?
This is like a bad joke. In World War II, we didn't tell the people supporting the Nazi frontline troops, guys, get out of your trucks because we're coming in an hour. This is insanity. You never tell the enemy what you're going to do in advance, because then they will adapt and you will not be able to crush them. We need to crush them. We need to understand they mean to destroy us, and we have to be serious about our response. We are not taken seriously either by our allies or, more importantly, by ISIS.
Dr. Gorka, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.